I am Monica Biascalan, representing the Susan Samueli Integrative Health Institute here at the University of California, Irvine. Today's lecture, presented by our institute, is titled The Science and Practice of Healthy Aging. Our lecturer is Dr. Xin Lin, professor of cell biology and a member of our Integrative Health Institute. He's the founding director of the Laboratory for Mind-Body Signaling and Energy Research and has previously served on the National Advisory Council on the Integrative Medicine and Public Advisory Group on Non-Pharmacological Management of Pain and Stress in the Military and is chairman of Think Tank on Biofield Energy Medicine, all at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Dr. Lin has a broad background in both Western and Eastern medicine and health. On the Western side, Dr. Lin has a PhD in biological chemistry from UCLA School of Medicine, did research at the School of Medicine at the University of California in San Francisco, served as chairman of biophysics at the Johns Hopkins University before coming to our University of California, Irvine, to be the dean of the School of Biological Sciences. On the eastern side, Dr. Lin received indoor training with the Grand Master Chen Zhenglei of Chen Style Tai Chi for the past 17 years, and also received training in acupuncture for physical medicine at Hong Kong Polytechnic University. He holds a visiting professorship at the Shanghai University of Traditional Chinese Medicine and was an academic advisor for the publication of the series titled Traditional and Classical Chinese Health Cultivation by that university. Besides establishing the Laboratory for Mind-Body Signaling and Energy Research here at our university, he also participated in the founding of the Mind-Brain Institute and the Cardiovascular Mechanics Research Institute at the Johns Hopkins University. Dr. Lin is presently serving on the editorial board of the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine and a permanent co-chair of World Congress of Qigong and Traditional Chinese Medicine. Please welcome Dr. Xin Lin.
So aging, normally happens sometime, around age 50. But if you don't take care of yourself, if your lifestyle is not as healthy as could be, the aging process could start as early as in the 30s. So what do we mean by aging changes or age-related changes? Here's a list of many of the things that we're familiar with. A loss of muscle mass and strength and speed, loss of body balance, bone density going down, weight going up, memory, cognitive functions going down, the ability to tolerate stress goes down, immune response goes down, aches and pains going up, sleep not as well as before, and the big thing, inflammatory diseases. Most importantly, cardiovascular diseases, arthritis, these things will occur at a higher rate. So, what can we do? So, this woman says, every day I walk for 30 minutes, I drink 8 glasses of water, and I eat 5 fruits and vegetables, but I'm still getting old. Fortunately, there are science-based ways to minimize or even reverse age-related changes. And that's what I'm going to talk about and teach you, later on in the session. So the way this presentation is divided is I'll talk to you like this for the first 50-55 minutes. Very short break, 5 minutes or so. And then we come back and I finish the lecture with another 15-20 minutes. And then spend as much time as you would like to stay in the hands-on part of the presentation. So, yes, there are ways to even reverse aging. I would like, and maybe some of you would like the arrow to go all the way to here, but that's a little bit too ambitious. But yes, we can do that. And all these problems could be minimized or reversed, and this is the topic of my talk. And everything I talk about is based on the latest research and science and so forth, not your common internet, hearsay. So let's group the first three problems together. Okay, muscle mass, strength, speed going down, balance going down, and weight going up. And it's obvious that these are things that perhaps physical exercise could help with. So first, muscles. Sarcopenia is a decline in skeletal muscle in older people, contributes to the loss of independence. This is a very recent article in the New York Times. So what can we do about that? There are now different types of exercises. What should you do? Like the woman said, I walk 5 miles a day. That didn't seem to help. So in this very new paper that came out, just a few months ago, they found that high-intensity training, like walking on a treadmill at a rather high speed, it would help. This would improve aerobic capacity associated with enhanced translation of mitochondrial proteins. The mitochondria is kind of the energy factory of the cell. And they found that when people exercise this way, it will make the mitochondrial genes express at a higher rate. And the end result is a higher oxidation capacity and higher muscle mass and strength. So now we're getting to start to understand, why exercise is good for you. Why certain exercises are maybe not as good. In our laboratory, we want to study, different muscles, okay? So in this case, we make use of what's called electromyography, or EMG. And we would put electrodes on different muscles, like, here's the pectoral muscles, thigh muscles, and deltoid muscles on the shoulders and so forth. And when we get a signal, we could see like how strong is that signal, and the stronger the signal means more that muscle is exercised. So first, we measure the different muscles of the leg, okay, and upper leg, lower leg, and on the side, and the front, and the back, and so forth. And we compare, okay, the use of different muscles, like, just walking, like a woman, like said, walk many miles a day, okay, versus doing Tai Chi. Doing Tai Chi, you don't just walk like this, you go into what's called a twist steps, like, step into it, like that. Or going backwards, or sideways, that, okay? And what we found was that the 6 muscles, side, top, back, and the upper, lower leg, normal walking would get these muscles to exercise to this level. But the front walk I just did has a whopping increase in the use of the side, the hip flexors, and the top, the quadriceps. Okay? So when you do this, you're using here. Step into it using this. When you walk, you're just swinging your legs. You're not using these muscles. And the same happens when you do the back walk or the side walk and so forth. Well, why is this important? This is important because falling is the #1 killer of people over 60, believe it or not. Okay, when somebody falls, not just breaking their head, but it might break their hips or break the legs, and the mobility goes down, they don't go out anymore, they can't exercise anymore, and then that sets up a downward spiral. This muscle is your stabilizer. This is your brake. So when you like trip, okay, well, I didn't fall because I have strong stabilizers and brakes. If I walk all day, I never build up these muscles. So that's a quick explanation why Tai Chi has been shown in so many clinical trials to reduce falls in the elderly. But it's much more than that. We did different exercises, and in this case, like 20-some different exercises in Tai Chi, and we graded the intensity of exercise on the front deltoid, shoulder, chest, oblique, side, and the back shoulder, traps, these muscles, okay, lats, lower back, and so forth. And when it's a really good, intense signal, we would grade it as red. If it's pretty good, we put it as orange. If it's still good, it'll be yellow. And you can see that it's red, orange, and all over the place. So to illustrate, the first one is through the back dodging. Okay, it's this. You can see that involves a lot of muscles. Second one is twisted body fist stance. Yeah, so each of these utilizes a lot of muscles, not just these. So Tai Chi would be an excellent type of exercise if you want the whole body, all the muscles to get trained. But the proof is in the pudding, okay? We did some pilot experiments, and first we tested for strength. So 5 of our students did 5 minutes of Tai Chi and see how much weight they could lift a single time, the maximum amount of weight they could do, compared to on a different day, they just warm up and then do that. And you can see for the 5 students, each one can lift a lot more weight a single time, okay, strength. So down here is compared to just warming up, just like that, versus doing Tai Chi to warm up. So 5 minutes of Tai Chi to warm up. The other thing is endurance. We take half the amount that you can lift, but see how many times you can do it. Okay, that's endurance. And for these 12 students, they all improve endurance by a lot. Average was 20%. Okay, so you can see the real effect of Tai Chi training on these students. Next, when we talk about muscles, we have to talk about how sometimes we move fast, sometimes we lift heavy weight, and different muscle fibers are involved. The slow muscle fibers, here, shown in a cross-section of a typical piece of muscle, are involved in, power. The fast muscle fibers are intertwined with the slow. They're involved in fast movements. And to function properly, you need to have good fast muscle fibers and slow muscle fibers. Otherwise, in real life, things wouldn't be as well as good as could be. So, in reference to aging, the fast muscle fibers are most affected by aging. So you have to be really careful so that you don't get into a downward spiral, because once you get into an aging process, which in this respect means anybody over 30, okay, muscles are aging. So you're getting older, and you're losing your fast muscle fibers. So you start to concentrate on things that are slower, and you practice slower type of exercises, and you walk slower and slower and slower and slower, and you end up like really slow and really slow, or even doing Tai Chi, doing that, or just sit there and meditate, okay? And things will get worse and worse. So what you should do is, as you age, you should do more fast muscle exercises, because those are the ones that are most effective. It's counterintuitive, but that's what you should do. So you should pick on exercises that are faster, like riding a bicycle or jogging quicker, or do the Tai Chi movements that are fast that I will teach you later on. Next, bone density. As you get older, particularly for elderly women, bone density goes down. The bones become more brittle, easier to break. So, traditionally, your doctor will say, what you need are weight-bearing exercises. So you look at the astronauts up in space. They're in an environment where there's no gravity, and the number one physical problem to them is loss of bone mass. Go to the gym and lift weights. Okay, that's what you women should do. Well, so again, what's good, what's bad, and so in this clinical trial, the researchers found that the Tai Chi group exhibited reduced rate of postmenopausal declines in bone density mass. That's good. Well, in fact, well, not lift weights, but when I stand like this, 100 some pounds of my weight is on my hip joints and my legs and so forth. Yeah, it's weight bearing. Interestingly, in this second study, they found that the Tai Chi group actually exhibited a greater increase in bone density than resistance training, like go to the gym and lift weights. How so? Well, they found that in fact the Tai Chi group was more faithful to their training program. It's fun. They go there with meet their friends, they all go together afterwards, they go to dim sum together, hey, it's a social event. Go to the gym and lift weights, yeah, After a while, I don't want to go anymore. And even in these clinical trials, subjects are never totally honest. You're supposed to go to the gym 3 times a week. Did you? Oh, yes. Yeah, maybe not quite. You're supposed to go there for an hour, right? Yeah. Well, they all say yes, okay. But sometimes it's not really true. So we're not saying Tai Chi is better than weightlifting, but the so-called compliance rate is higher, making that group getting more benefit out of the exercise. More recently, researchers have found that just weight bearing is important, but not enough. They found that bone vibration is also a very important factor in keeping the bone strong, like that. That's a bone vibration. So researchers have found that this particular study, that if you jump 10 to 20 times, almost a foot off the ground, 30 seconds rest between jumps 2 times daily, that resulted in significant gain in hip bone density mineral density after 8 weeks. And a follow-up study in Japan showed that the group that actually did running on the treadmill, retained higher bone density mass than the people doing the elliptical machine. The elliptical machine is supposed to be better for the joints, but in this case, not as good, for the bones. Unfortunately, it's still true that running is not the best for the joints. Well, dance is actually a very good type of exercise, not just Tai Chi. Recent study shows that dance was the leading type of exercise for prevention of physical disabilities in elderly Japanese women, a reduction of disability rate by 73%, very significant.
Is this line dancing or is
this picture I'm showing is line dancing. Yeah. My wife Diane, who's sitting in the back here, provided me with this information, and she loves line dancing. Okay. So she doesn't come to my Tai Chi class anymore. Next, the decline in memory and stress tolerance. Memory, cognitive functions, I'm going to group that together and in fact relate that to bone density. That's kind of weird, how bone density is related to these problems. First, exercise, physical exercise, has been shown to be good for cognitive functions. So, executive function, control function, spatial differentiation, speed of recognition, all these can be tested in a laboratory. And exercise, compared to the control group that didn't, people did a lot better in all of these. But how come? How come is when you exercise, your brain gets larger. You can measure the size of the brain by MRI, and the brain actually is larger on the average in people who exercise than the people who don't. But it's not just the brain. The brain itself is not larger. It's the part of the brain called the hippocampus that gets larger. So here's the whole brain, and labeled in red is the part called hippocampus because it looks like the seahorse. Okay, this is the name of the seahorse. That's a small part of the brain. But with MRI, you can actually go and measure the size of that part of the brain. And the people who exercise, the group that exercise, had a larger hippocampus. And not only that, they found that the more people exercise, the bigger the brain gets in terms of the hippocampus. It's a direct relationship. Okay, so that's an interesting lead. An amazing discovery was made at UC San Diego, also at UCI independently. The discovery, 20 years now, okay, was that mice that exercise on a running wheel had more brain cells created in the hippocampus. New brain cells from cell division. So cells dividing in the brain is called neurogenesis, generating more new cells. And here's a typical slice of a brain at the hippocampus of the control mice. that didn't get to exercise. And here's a slice of a brain near the hippocampus, or at the hippocampus, from a mouse here that belongs to the group that did the treadmill. And what you look for are cells that are red. New brain cells from cell division are labeled in red color. And you see that the running mouse has these red cells all over. Like they have creating new brain cells from the running. And the comparison group that did not run did not get these. So running will create more brain cells in the hippocampus. But now we know a lot more, okay? You might say, oh well, yeah, so you had a few brain cells, but look at all the other cells, that's a small percentage. But now we know that these are not your normal brain cells. These are super brain cells. So in recent years, people found that the newly created brain cells at the hippocampus are larger, look at this, larger, longer axons, more mature, better integrated in the overall brain circuitry. And you can do all the statistical analysis. So when you exercise, you are not just adding more brain cells in the hippocampus, but you're adding super brain cells there. But what do these cells do? So I'm going to walk you through this rather complicated scheme here based on what we know to date. When you exercise, this bone vibration, running or doing Tai Chi, okay? So when you vibrate the bones, I just told you, your bone structure gets enhanced, more dense, larger, okay? Now we know that when that happens, the bone secretes an agent called osteocalcin. This will go up in proportion to bone structure. So what's so special about osteocalcin? Look at this. Here's a piece of bone. It's secreting osteocalcin. But osteocalcin can go past the blood-brain barrier and get into the brain. And then act on the hippocampus, resulting in generation of more brain cells there. What type of brain cells? Okay, increased neurogenesis in hippocampus. Two types. Excitatory neurons that are used for memory. Oh, so you enhance your memory because you have these super cells there. There's also a second type of cells, inhibitory neurons that suppress stress response. So these super brain cells in the hippocampus, some will increase your memory, some will make you tolerate stress better. Now we know the exact pathway for all of that. Now, we also know that muscle exercise could also stimulate an enzyme called AMPK, and that too acts on the hippocampus and give you this. So when you exercise, you unavoidably will vibrate your bones and you will, contract the muscles, so you have a dual effect and create these wonderful supercells. And how does that relate to aging? Okay. When a person ages, there's a higher concentration of sclerostin. Sclerostin inhibits bone structure, makes the bone less dense. So this is the normal situation when you age, but when you exercise, you counteract that and go there. If you don't do this, then everything will get turned down, 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 down. You lose your memory. You can resist stress less easily and so forth. So that's the big picture. What type of exercise, again, okay, so in this clinical trial, using animals, they found that aerobic training had the most effect on neurogenesis. High intensity training, not as good, small improvement. Weight training, no effect. That's why we call these animals meatheads, right? Lots of muscles, no brain. Okay. So, next you might ask, well, how much, training? Right here at UCI, scientists found that riding the stationary bicycle for only 6 minutes at 70% maximum mobility, all these subjects showed improved performance in memory tests. So you don't have to ride the bike for 2 hours every single day. Okay, the mice do. You put them in a cage with a running wheel, they do that all day long. But for us, it doesn't really take much to get this type of effect. Next, we'll talk about the immune system that goes down with age and how you reverse that. And I'm going to talk about that in relation to stress. We just talked about stress, so let's talk about both at the same time. The former director of the Samueli Center, back then was called David Belton, made up this slide. He's almost a founding father of neuroimmunology. So here is the immune system, and when that's working well, that will prevent pathogens like bacteria and viruses from invading the body, and you keep healthy. But if this system is turned down, then you will end up here. Okay? As a person ages, well, this gets turned down, and you're more and more likely to get sick. But that's a different story. Let's talk about stress. Here's the nervous system, and when it's bombarded by stress, okay, it will send out, signals to, in fact, turn down the immune system. And then, you get sick. So, let's put this slide somewhere. Oh, okay. So let's see how stress could affect the immune system. Aging would, but stress. Dwight Nance, who was on the faculty of the Samueli Center, did this definitive experiment using an animal model. So, two groups of rats. One group was stressed by constantly exposing them to electrical shock. So that's a physical stress and mental stress as well. You get shocked, okay? Compared to the group that didn't. And look at the level of tumor necrosis factor. It's a very important marker in the immune system. This is before they start giving the shock treatment to add stress. This is the level of tumor necrosis factor, and this is what happened. So you can, measurably reduce the immune system when you apply stress, in this case, to animals. Now, you can't really tell people that, oh, you know, you undergo so much stress, I don't worry about it too much, you know. You can't, you know, people worry, they worry, okay? So, well, what else can you tell them not to do? Or to do? Well, luckily, stress comes in two forms. We know stress as mainly distress, mental stress, physical stress. But there's another type of stress, the good stress, called eustress. So if these two are, you know, balancing each other, so if you have a lot of distress, hey, you do things that will give you eustress, that would balance things. And you know, if you cannot reduce easily your distress, maybe you can increase your eustress. So Dr. Felton did this experiment that shows that distress, your stress hormone cortisol will go up, your adrenaline will go up, and your endorphin will come down. Okay, your immune system would be suppressed. That's not good. But eustress could give you the opposite effect. You know, decrease adrenaline, decrease cortisol, increase endorphins, and that will lead to an immune system going up. So the study and his collaborator, Burke, over in Loma Linda, they look at eustress as watching funny movies. Okay? Yeah, well, ha 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 ha. Mirthful laughter, ha 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 ha. Okay? And you can see, in this case, they use these catheter tubes in a very serious study. They can take blood samples, you know, every 5 minutes without sticking a needle, just like open the valve and get some blood, And they showed that serum cortisol, the stress hormone, goes down right after you start watching the movie. And then remains down for another, in this case, another hour and a half. As a control group, you know, they settle down, sit down, but then they just read some boring magazines and, you know, it doesn't happen. Okay, so the cortisol level can go down in real time. Adrenaline level, same thing. From high level to low, you know, and continuously stay low. So that's the stress markers. How about the immune markers? Immune markers of the group that watched the funny movies went up significantly. And the control group, you know, no significant change. And this is a marker called natural killer cells. Interferon, another immune marker. In the funny movie group went up when the movie started, and then an hour and a half later, still high, and amazingly, the next day is still high. So when you're happy, watching, you know, laughing and all this, you know, the effect is long-lasting. It's just like, oh, well, then you have to watch the movie 24 hours a day. No, look at this. Well, there are other types of eustress, okay? Singing, okay? Done at UCI. The choral group, okay, shows 1.5-fold to 2.5-fold increase of immunoglobulin A after performances. Okay? They're really happy when they go and perform. Listening to music produces endorphins, dopamine, shown by fMRI. Dance, okay? Dance movement therapy is like a, you know, a codified type of dance so that you can like compare from group to group to group. and it changed the neurohormonal and immunostress response to day surgery. And this other study, dance therapy, is more effective in reducing psychological distress than non-treatment, okay, and effects last over time. Okay, so find the type of things that will make you happy, and that will balance off the stress that you have that you cannot avoid. All right. In real life situation, the shingles virus, oh, that's a dreaded thing for older people, okay, getting shingles. So at UCLA, they studied this marker of the immune system, the level of antibodies to the shingles virus. Group, the elderly people are divided into two groups. Control group did not do anything, and the level, bounced up or down a little bit, didn't really change. Notice that this is a log scale, so the 7 to 8 to 9, these are huge differences, these are like tenfold differences. The Tai Chi group, okay, the level of antibodies to shingles virus went up and up and up. Oh, wow, okay, when the control group didn't really change. At the 16-week stage, everybody should get shingles virus vaccination. Okay, the control group got vaccinated, and rightly so, the level of antibodies to shingles virus went up to here. Oh, look at this. The Tai Chi group was already higher than this before they got their vaccination. So, whoa, practicing Tai Chi is as good as, if not better, than getting the shingles virus vaccination. But no, everybody should get vaccinated. So they got vaccinated and went all the way up to here. How high is that? You see the dashed line? That represents the level of antibodies in 30-year-olds. So the group that practice Tai Chi and get vaccinated, it's like Back to the Future, okay? They're stronger than the 30-year-olds. So this is a famous study in terms that people could easily understand. Next, let's talk about reducing stress. What type of exercise would be best? In 2008, the United States Agency for Health Research Quality did a comprehensive study of every single research paper on meditative practices. And they systematically analyzed the data from over 800 papers. And they ranked Tai Chi as by far the most effective in reducing stress, objectively measured as reduction of systolic blood pressure. You see, this line, red, means that the comparison group that didn't do the exercise, would be here, like here. The control group, they didn't do anything, okay? It would be right on the red line, meaning no effect. The many Tai Chi studies had effects ranging from here to here, with the average here, way on this side, favoring Tai Chi. Yoga is here, okay? And this group of so-called stationary types of meditation, where you sit like this, okay, like Buddhist meditation, mantra meditation, transcendental meditation, mindfulness-based stress reduction methods based on these, they do have an effect, but not as well as this. First of all, okay, when you sit there, you're not exercising. You're not getting the benefits of, the increase of brain cells in the hippocampus. But there are other reasons too. So let's look at some of these reasons why Tai Chi ranks so high. Tai Chi is characterized by the integrated regulation of mind, body, and breath, okay, breathing. The effects on the body we already talked about. The effects on the mind and the brain. So in our laboratory, we study using EEG, putting electrodes on the head and look at their brainwave patterns. And we show that in this particular subject, okay, the theta waves that are indicative of a person under deep relaxation, okay, this is before and during meditation, the theta waves went way up, indicating deep relaxation. Alpha waves, indicative of a person who's calm, went way up. Now, if you're in deep sleep, this would happen. But in this case, during meditation, you get something unique. The beta waves, indicative of a person who's awake and alert, also go way up. So in other words, we showed that during meditation, it's a dual state of relaxed concentration. So you have the benefit of deep rest and the benefit of also sharpening your brain because you're concentrating on a single thing. And in our laboratory, we could also show that people who meditate can focus, sustained focus on objects on the computer screen much better than people who don't get this training. And of course, there are all sorts of studies showing people who meditate will do better in school, in their everyday life, and so forth, because they can focus better. So you get the dual benefits of calming down, reducing stress, and sharpening your brain. But there's something else. This is a new study, okay, 2016. They show that people who do Tai Chi have improved memory and cognitive functions. It's a type of exercise, among other things, and they focus better. But the reason I'm showing you this is that they did brain functional studies. They found an increase in functional connectivity between the prefrontal cortex here, which is involved in short-term memory, and the hippocampus that I just talked about for long-term memory.
So as you can see, this is brain imaging, and it shows that the subjects who practice Tai Chi has better connections between the hippocampus area for long-term memory and the prefrontal cortex for short-term memory. And this is very important in terms of like everyday functioning, problem solving, cognitive functions, and so forth, executive functions. In our laboratory, we also want to see how deep breathing, slow deep breathing pattern as used in Tai Chi and Qigong practices can affect the person's ability to calm down. So in order to put the subjects under stress, we asked them to play this very stressful video game called The Slender Man. As you might recall, this girl in Minnesota got so stressed that she actually stabbed her friend with a knife after playing this game. We have no knives in the laboratory, of course. So you can see that before playing the game, the heart rate is at this level, and then when the person starts to play the game, the heart rate went up to here. And then when we instructed the subject to continue to play the game, but breathe slowly and deeply, the heart rate came down significantly. Blood pressure, same thing. Before playing the game, during the game, it went up to here, and then continue to play the game, but breathe slowly and deeply, the blood pressure came down significantly. Here's another study. Latest study, 2017. It shows that different types of breathing is controlled by different parts of the brain. Here's diagrammatically the brain, and within the brain stem, and within the brain stem there's what's called a breathing pacemaker region of the brain. And in this study, they showed that nervous type of breathing, like that, is actually controlled by this part of the brain, or the breathing pacemaker. A different type of breathing, like sighing, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, OMG, okay? That's affected by a different part of the brain. But when a person is breathing, like slowly and deeply, that type of breathing is controlled by yet another region of the breathing pacemaker. And this region is unique in that it's hardwired by nerves to this other center of the brain that has to do with panic response. So that when a person experiences stress, this part of the brain will depress that stress response. In other words, by breathing slowly and deeply, you can relieve the stress response. Why? Nervous sniffing and this sighing, OMG, OMG, is not going to help. Changing to a different topic, we're going to talk about cellular longevity. Professor Elizabeth Blackburn, while she was at UC San Francisco, won the Nobel Prize for discovering what is called the telomere. For those of you who are not biological scientists, you can think of the telomere as the same as the plastic protective cap on the end of your shoelace. It prevents the shoelace from fraying out like this, you see? So it sits at the ends of chromosomes, the telomere, and protect them from unraveling. Now, what's the significance of the telomere? The length of the telomere actually is an indication of how much longer that cell can live. In other words, an indication of longevity of the cell. So in this diagram from Dr. Blackburn's laboratory, it shows that psychological stress can really affect the length of the telomere. Studies have found that people who are under chronic stress, like parents who have to take care of handicapped children or mentally challenged children, they're under constant stress. And studies have shown that people like that, or also returning soldiers suffering from PTSD, they have shorter telomeres. And shorter telomeres, as I said, is an indication of shorter life expectancy at the cellular level. Shorter telomere is related to cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, pulmonary fibrosis, liver cirrhosis, all those horrible things. Luckily, while we know that short telomeres are associated with senescence, cellular aging, which leads to an increase in inflammatory cytokines and lead to all these horrible things, including stimulation of tumor cells. Luckily, other studies have shown that the telomere length could be increased by exercising, physical exercise, dietary omega-3 supplementation, meditation, mind-body practices. So if you are constantly under stress, you can counterbalance that by doing one or more of these things in lifestyle changes and mitigate the problem of the telomeres getting shorter and shorter, leading to all these horrible diseases. Okay, so while we're on the subject of stress, okay, let's talk about stress-related problems. Aches and pain, problems sleeping, inflammatory diseases. At the University of Michigan Oncology Center, they observed that many of their cancer patients suffer from a whole collection of problems, and they seem to be clustered together. Pain, inflammation, because if you have pain and inflammation, you have sleep problems, not enough sleep, chronic fatigue accompanied by cognitive dysfunction, depression, and this could go in a vicious cycle. Well, this is not unique to cancer patients. As you can see, many people suffer maybe at a lower level, but pain, sleep problems, fatigue, mental problems all together. So in Michigan, they want to see how to mitigate these symptom clusters. But first, let's talk about inflammation. Okay. Inflammation is something that could be either good or bad for your body. On the good side, thank God we have inflammation when we cut ourselves locally, okay, localized injury or infection, that could lead to a localized acute inflammatory response. It's noticeable. Symptoms include redness, swelling, hotness, pain. That's a reflection of cytokines. These are signaling molecules in the body released. White cells activated to engulf invading bacteria, stimulate new cell growth. The cut will seal itself. That's great. Like I said, it's really good that we have the inflammatory response for this sort of situation. What is not good is called systemic inflammation. Like the whole body gets inflamed. So, systemic inflammation could be caused by age-related wear and tear of the body, physical injuries and infection, environmental stress, dietary imbalances, dietary deficiencies. Here, it's chronic. It happens 24/7, and you don't even know you have it. And that leads to chronic inflammation response. As I said, a noticeable process that speaks wear and tear of many bodies. You're tearing up your own body, not just engulfing, invading bacteria. locally if you get a cut. And this type of accelerated aging increased disposition to major diseases, could lead to arthritis, rhinitis, gastritis, asthma, heart disease, and even many types of cancer. So, inflammation, how do you get this under control and not get runaway systemic inflammation? So inflammation is like this kind of a balance. The body produces pro-inflammatory agents, so-called cytokines, and under perfect conditions, it's counterbalanced by anti-inflammatory agents, so-called cytokines. And the cytokines send messages between immune cells, nerve cells, brain cells. Some will promote inflammation, as I said, others are anti-inflammatory. And a wide spectrum of conditions, including cardiovascular disease, arthritis, diabetes, and certain cancers, obesity, functional decline are linked to an increase in inflammatory cytokines. So how do we minimize, getting too much inflammatory cytokines? So first of all, aches and pain. How do we reduce aches and pains and localized inflammation? Now, as many of you know, back pain, particularly lower back pain, is the #1 problem Americans turn to complementary and alternative medicine. With that condition, the American College of Physicians actually recommends Tai Chi for a non-pharmacological treatment of back pain. Studies at Harvard Medical School show that back pain can lead to inflammation, pain of course, decreased mobility, and inactivity, such as aging or just being a couch potato, could have a similar effect on mobility and leading to back pain problems. Luckily, there is a way to treat this without drugs. Stretching. The researchers at Harvard showed that stretching, localized stretching, could decrease inflammation and increase mobility. So, in this type of study, they use rats. Like this is a normal rat, and the researchers induced lower back pain by injecting an irritant, chemical irritant, into the lower back area. So the rats who got injected all have low back pain. Half of the rats did not get treated. The other half, they all have back pain, were taught how to do Tai Chi. Of course, they couldn't do that. But they were made to do stretching exercises. How so? So look at this. This is a tabletop, and this rat is trying to run away, like grabbing onto the tabletop and trying to run away. But this rat cannot run away because the tail is held by the researcher. So the rat is actually forced to do a stretching exercise. And they found that the rats that got to do this had a decrease in pain and inflammation caused by the irritant compared to the rats who didn't get to do this. Inactivity, the same researchers showed, like this pig, they put a brace on one of the 3 legs, and this pig they use more than one peg. Then develop pain and inflammation and lack of mobility even after they took the brace off. And again, getting the pig to do stretching exercises like in the rats will mitigate this problem. So, in other words, stretching could have that sort of beneficial effect, and so could actually acupuncture, but that's a different story. And so could massage, deep tissue massage. And we actually have a mechanism known now for why this is beneficial. First, stretching exercises, also acupuncture and deep tissue massage. When you stretch your body, the underlying connective tissue plane, or scientifically called extracellular matrix, gets stretched. That itself doesn't do anything, but indirectly, the cells called fibroblasts that are attached to this matrix also get stretched because they are attached to the matrix. The matrix is stretched and these cells get stretched. When the fibroblasts get stretched, they secrete a signaling molecule called ATP. ATP gets converted to adenosine. Adenosine binds to what's called A1 receptors, and we now know that these receptors have to do with controlling pain and inflammation. So this whole pathway is now worked out, that stretching, acupuncture, and massage could lead to relief of pain, analgesic effect, and inflammatory effects. In our laboratory, we want to see which Tai Chi exercise or exercises or Qigong exercises are particularly effective. Just take Tai Chi. There's over 100 different movements in Tai Chi. Qigong, countless number of exercises. But which one or which ones are the most effective? So in our laboratory, we use two measurements. The level of contraction of muscles measured by electromyography. When a muscle contracts, it gives out an electrical signal that we could measure and quantify. We can also measure which muscle is used to the extent that blood circulation around that area is improved. And we use a laser Doppler technique to measure the local blood flow. And we, ahead of time, kind of guess that these 6 different exercises should be good for the back pain. And you can see that in blue, okay, each of these exercises, activated the lower back muscles, some by a greater or lesser extent, like this particular one. Deer sprinting is particularly good compared to like deer looking back and so forth. And the one that is most effective in stretching the lower back produces the greatest amount of increase in blood flow measured by laser Doppler. So these 6 exercises are shown scientifically to be particularly good for exercising the lower back. And when you exercise the lower back, you strengthen the lower back muscles to help, with the back pain in case, you have to like bend down and things like that. And of course, improve blood flow will get rid of waste products and things like that, and help with the situation. Why are we talking about muscle pain, soft tissue pain? How about like joint pain, knee osteoarthritis? Tai Chi in this study has been shown to be very effective in treating knee osteoarthritis. In this case, after 3 months, the Tai Chi group had a substantial drop in knee pain, more improvement in function, mental depression, and health status. The researcher concluded that synergy between the physical and the mental components of Tai Chi likely played a role. Enhancement of cardiovascular function, muscular strength, balance, coordination, and physical function are all thought to be able to reduce joint pain. Sleep. Chronic stress will, of course, affect sleep. Chronic stress is known to desensitize the cortisol receptors in the immune cells. Cortisol is, of course, your stress hormone that's most well known, leading to suppression of pro-inflammatory regulation, runaway systemic inflammation, and, as I've said before, increased risk for cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disorder, asthma, other inflammatory diseases. Sleep deprivation is highly linked to inflammation. So if you want to avoid inflammation, one easy thing is to get more sleep. As they now say that sleep is now the latest status symbol of the 21st century, because so many people can't even afford to sleep enough. But in this study, it shows that sleep or the lack of sleep is directly linked to inflammation. At UCLA, the scientists get these subjects, normal, healthy subjects, to sleep 3 nights under perfect conditions. So each of the 3 nights they slept for 8 hours. On the 4th night, the subjects were roused up at 3 o'clock in the morning, okay, and keep them from continuing with their sleep. That just 1 night of interrupted sleep induced a 3-fold increase in inflammatory markers. So it's not just like chronic lack of sleep, just like 1 night of imperfect sleep could trigger inflammation. So again, luckily, a mind-body exercise like Tai Chi, as shown by the UCLA scientists, could counterbalance this type of effect. So they actually compare the group that got started in doing Tai Chi with a comparison group that got what is known to be effective for sleep problems, so-called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. And you can see the 2 lines, the blue representing the Tai Chi subjects, and the yellow representing the subjects that got treated with CBT. Both groups had a very significant decrease in sleep problems during this 10-month trial. And the effects are long-lasting. You can see even after 6 months, after 15 months, the sleep problems still much decreased. Having enough sleep will decrease fatigue and depression symptoms. Again, comparing the Tai Chi group with the cognitive behavioral treatment group, the therapy group, both of them decrease significantly in fatigue markers and in depression markers. Now, getting back to the University of Michigan Oncology Center, where they study patients that suffer from, again, pain, sleep problems, fatigue, cognitive dysfunction. They got together a group of well-known traditional Chinese medicine doctors and asked them to come up with acupuncture points that they know would decrease these problems. And in this case, the study is not so much on acupuncture by a therapist, but self-care, finger pressure by the patients on these points. And the committee came up with 5 acupuncture points. Impression hall between the eyebrows, peaceful sleep behind the ears, spirit gate on the sides of the wrist, 3-yin junction on the lower legs, great brushing, top of the feet. So in this clinical trial, one group of patients massage these points, okay, for 3 minutes at a time, 3 times a week, and check this for like a 4-week period against another group that did not do this. And as you can see, the so-called acupressure, that is without using a needle but just finger pressure by the patient, acupressure, on these 5 points, improved sleep. Sleep problems went down significantly, pain went down, mental depression went down, fatigue went down. So in this clinical study, it shows that the cancer patients really benefited from self-massage of these points. In our laboratory, we also want to test how these points may work on healthy patients that are put under stress. In this case, we make them watch video clips of horror movies, such as this. And this shows studies on one of these 5 points, impression hall, okay, like right in the center of the face. This is baseline for this group of subjects. And when they started to watch the horror movies, the blood pressure went up. And when pressure was put on this acupuncture point in real time, blood pressure came back down. And as a control, now they massage a point on the face that is not this point, and blood pressure went back up. So this is the control. Heart rate, same thing. Baseline, watching the movie, but massage the point, heart rate came down, and then massage the wrong point, and went back up. Heart rate variability, which is a measurement of your stress response. Baseline, the stress response, the so-called sympathetic nervous system, went way up, massage on the point, came down, massage on the wrong point, started to go up. So we can see in real time, even on healthy subjects put under stress who were watching the movie, benefited from pushing these points by hand. And this is a picture of the different points that I just talked about. Finally, I want to end up with talking about, again, inflammatory diseases. One way, in addition to different types of exercises and so forth, to control that is diet. So, as I said, you want to avoid too much pro-inflammatory signaling molecules, which will get your body to be in a highly inflamed state. So let's look at the dietary considerations. Omega-6 oil. This comes in margarine, corn oil, peanut oil, safflower oil, sesame oil. These are your common cooking oil, particularly in restaurants and fast food, restaurants. They use a lot of corn oil, peanut oil. Why is this not a very healthy oil to take in? Because in the body, the omega-6 oil get enzymatically converted to so-called AA, okay, short for arachidonic acid. The AA gets further converted by two enzymes called COX and LOX to inflammatory cytokines. So if you have a lot of omega oil intake, you will eventually get an increase in inflammatory cytokines because of this pathway. On the other hand, omega-3 oil is considered healthy. Omega-3 oil is mainly from cold water fish like salmon, grass-fed animals, grass-fed beef, omega-3 oil-rich eggs. This is healthy because omega-3 oil gets converted to EPA and DHA by the body. And these two products get converted by the same enzymes, COX and LOX, into anti-inflammatory cytokines. So you can see greater intake of omega-3 oil will eventually lead to higher levels of anti-inflammatory cytokines to counteract the inflammatory cytokines produced by overeating omega-6 oil. And because they both get converted by these two enzymes, there's competition going on here. If you have a lot of this stuff doesn't get as much of a chance to go here. You get more of this here. So it's not just the absolute amount, it's the ratio that's also very, very important. In addition to eating cold water fish, EPA and DHA can be added to the diet in the form of leafy, dark green vegetables like kale, okay, flax seeds, canola oil, walnut oil, soybean oil. So if your diet is rich in cold water fish like salmon, kale, flaxseed oil, and cooking with canola oil and flaxseed oil, then you have a chance to increase your anti-inflammatory cytokines to counteract the inflammatory cytokines and prevent your body from getting into a highly inflamed state that could lead to all these horrible diseases. So, in conclusion, the cornerstones of healthy aging. You can actually start to reverse aging, as shown by this cartoon, by more exercise, okay, to increase your muscle mass, strength, and speed, improve your balance by doing Tai Chi to avoid falling, and controlling your weight by exercising, increasing bone density by exercising, particularly the type that involves jumping and vibrating your bone structure, and exercise because of the effects on the bones and the muscles. You indirectly affect the part of the brain called the hippocampus, and you start to get increase in super brain cells They have to do with memory and cognitive functions, and also relief of the stress response. Sleep better, this will decrease inflammation, less fatigue, less stress will produce higher immune response, so your body can fight off anywhere from invading bacteria to viruses or even cancer. And stretching, acupuncture, massage could decrease aches and pains over the body. And doing these things, as well as watching your diet. Eat more cold water fish, dark leaf vegetables to produce higher level of anti-inflammatory cytokines to decrease the inflammatory response. So here, anti-inflammatory diet, physical exercises, mind-body practices like Tai Chi and Qigong, and acupoint-related therapies, such as putting a needle to stimulate, or you can do it by yourself, putting finger pressure. All of these things are going to be beneficial in terms of healthy aging. So thank you very much, and if you have any further questions, you can email me, shinlin@uci.edu, or check out our website here. Thank you very much.